We can, yeah. Yeah, no problem. Sure. Yeah, I've already got Teams downloaded, so I just clicked the link and it got me in. I think sometimes it's Teams goes into that like auto update magic, which locks you out again. So it could also be that. Yeah.
Hi, good to see you guys. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Sure thing. So yeah, I'm Mike Tempest. I'm the CTO of Risica, where we help businesses understand their credit risk with other businesses. And I also have founded Elysium Studios, which is a venture studio building MarTech solutions for the new age of marketing.
Hi guys, my name is Paweł Kamiński. I'm the co-founder and CTPO at the company called Founder and Lightning, or Lightning Group, where we in principle help non-technical founders build their legacy, and we help with everything from the beginning of the idea through problem validation to kind of a Series A. And at this moment, we help with raising money, building product, driving the technology, and my role is to support the founders. So happy to be here and pleasure to learn together.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much to both of you, gentlemen. Sorry, we didn't have other panelists. They kept, well, they didn't keep cancelling, but they had other stuff to do, which sometimes is understandable. So they had to cancel. So you're stuck with me today, but hopefully we'll get some good questions. We have some in writing, but as you know, I'm not a huge fan of those. Let's start with some do's and don'ts, gentlemen. What would you say are your biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage product and tech? I see you've unmuted, Mike, so you can go first.
Sure, sorry.
Don't worry about repeating what you've said before, but please do not use the same reasoning for both do and don'ts, and take your time because there's only two of you, so we can have that luxury today.
Yeah, no problem. So I think the biggest do for me, and something I see time and time again that people don't actually do this, is enough customer research. You should be speaking to potential customers or who you view as a customer of the product you are looking to make as much as possible, especially in the early stages. You do not know what they want. I guarantee that you will unlock some form of intelligence during that conversation, which will drastically change the product that you're trying to create. So yeah, the biggest do is talk to your potential customers as much as possible. Maybe even start design partner programs so that you can actually build alongside them. It will help you also potentially create a revenue stream there where you can sell in a proof of concept as part of that, which is an easier way for your potential customers to get involved with you, understand how you work, and build that relation with you, because founder-led sales are one of the biggest things in early stage growth, not just paid media. So yeah, that's my biggest do. Biggest don't is don't start building any technology early on, because the biggest thing you need to understand right now is the what. So what are you building and who are you building it for? If anything, you should be building more around the marketing side early on, how you're going to position that and all of that side of the business. So yeah, those are my first do's and don'ts. I'll pass it over to Pavel.
Awesome, thank you very much. It's hard to be coming up with those all the time as the new ones. But I agree with the customer focus. That I think is the first one, and we kind of position this as the answers to your problems are not in your office. If you are lucky enough to have some kind of an office, they are outside there, and just basically being present with how the users are actually performing the tasks that you want them to use your product for, or observing them in their natural environment is extremely important. One aspect of cautious here about asking the users bad questions, like don't ask, hey, do you like it, would you buy it, and so on. There's the whole body of knowledge about why the users keep lying to us, or maybe not lying on per se, but kind of have a biases and try to rationalize their past and future decisions. So be cautious about how you run the user interviews, but there is nothing wrong with asking more people before you start building. And I think that the tremendous value that you'll be able to build within your startup is exactly about extremely deep understanding of what the problems are. I very rarely see a business which has got almost any chance of success when there's no the depth understanding of the problems and the opportunities. And then this kind of drives me to the second point, which is we say don't fall in love with your solution, fall in love with the problem, which means especially now when the change in technology and the product thinking and behavioral science and all of the research and humanity doubling the amount of things that we know every single day or something ridiculous like this, you cannot be fixated on how you are planning to sort out that particular problem forever. The things are changing, the context is changing, the opportunities will be different. Sam Altman and his OpenAI is going to come up with a new model doing something which will be part of your product. There will be new business models and there will be new ways of charging people for it or providing value in a different way, which means the understanding and the depth of understanding of the problem is so much more important than how you're thinking about your solution first. And I think this is maybe where kind of a Mike was trying to go with, like, be cautious about building technology. At certain point, you have to build something and prove the point, but like be very cautious about, oh, it has to be this, it is fixed, it's forever going to be like that. Have that internal agility and lean thinking in you to build a great product that people will use and will want to use it over time. I think that would be my advice.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you very much to both of you, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. I guess a quick reset of the conversation, then we will go on to some questions from the audience. Where are we? Bear with me just 1 second. So this is Startup Product and Tech Q&A. It's our 158th session. We've been doing these for just over 4 years, where we're seeking to help startups like yourselves with whatever questions you may have whilst building your early stage product or technology. The idea is quite simple. If you are here with us on the Microsoft Teams chat, all you have to do is simply drop your question in the chat. We'll then give you the mic and you'll be able to ask our panelists and get some help from them. If, however, you are on the live streams, please remember that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions live, whether you're tuning in via LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. So you would have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can join from anywhere via any device or platform. All you have to do is go to our website, which is startuptoscaleup.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 158. Once you've done that, click join. It's a quick registration that gets you a link to your website, to your email, and through that link, then you can tune here. There literally are no wrong questions. We're hoping we can help you with things, obviously, to do with building your early stage, whether that's product roadmaps or design, prototype, landing pages, apps, testing, MVPs, automation, full stack, low code, no code, and all that jazz. Again, it's a learning curve for us all, so please don't be shy. Now, if your questions, however, are on other matters, then that's a bit different. Then you'll ask questions for the other events we do. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of each month it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startuptoscaleup.club. Naturally, when you're there, you may also want to join our WhatsApp community. We've got some groups with some founders and investors and operators that you can connect with. Now, let's go on to our first question. Our EdTech SaaS platform in Manchester offers tailored content to multiple schools, but we're struggling with how to structure multi-tenancy in a way that allows easy customization for each client. What architectural strategies would allow each environment without increasing complexity? And are there tools that simplify tenant-specific configuration? Jesus Christ, talk about being technical. You know what? I'm not even going to attempt. So let's start with Pavel and then Mike, please.
I think that the context would matter, right, a lot, and it's a shame that we cannot have this better conversation with the founders on board. And if they're already having this build and it's potentially working, then they already made certain decisions about how they do things from the perspective. Is it like I don't know, a single database, multiple schemas inside it? There's plenty of stuff there, but like my temptation would be to kind of how to simplify this and not kind of a build like let's say like this. Every single time we build a product that ended up being, and we built, for example, a similar solution for a mobile app for golf clubs, and every single time the founder came back to us and said, well, but this golf club needs X, and that X could not be easily extrapolated for everybody else, then you ended up building 200 different kind of a mobile apps. The deployment becomes dramatically more difficult. The testing becomes extremely tricky, because now you have to test that not only it works for one golf club, but it doesn't break the other 200. So I think it's the question of how they really decide on their business and what do they want to be and where do they want to be special. So I think that's one thing. From the perspective of purely architecting and what you could do to like minimize the complexity of it, like configuration as code, I don't know if that's important for them, ability to deploy stuff per particular tenant of it. Like there are architectures where you could build this through plugins and extension points. I think that's an interesting stuff. I've seen solutions where people build like a themes engine, which means the front end part, like the logos, the branding, the colors, the navigation style, is driven from the perspective of the theme. It's like heavy CSS and so on. And the things that we really love, but for a very different reason, is the feature flags, which means we use feature flags from like a different type of development. Let's call it like very quick iterations when we keep deploying to production all of the time, but certain things are hidden. For this person and for this use case, you could have a feature flag system that controls what is displayed to whom. It can get very messy and very complex very soon, but we just don't know more about the section. But I would be really challenging the assumptions that you have to do it just because one school expects it, and that would be my starting point for a CTO to a CEO conversation.
Thank you very much for that, Pavel. Yes, Mike.
Yeah, I kind of build on that. Of a way of thinking of this is kind of more of like a separation of concerns of logic as well. So the way I normally approach this sort of solution is turn customization on its head and think of it as restrictions. So you'll create a kind of restrictions middle layer that can be a customer management dashboard, which your team customizes, or you could face that on the customer side and it's against the customer, where they kind of design off a package of 20 different things. Here are the things I want, and that's stored at a customer level. Then you have account level separated from that. So that would take into things like cost plans that they're on. It would look at their subscriptions and all of that side of the business, so that you're really separating those two concerns. And then I'd also kind of build that restrictions logic in a very similar way to how Pavel was explaining there around feature flags. But it's based upon restrictions. You do have to be careful though, right? Because sometimes there are these customizations where it affects multiple other features at that point. So you do have to build with that in mind and try to make sure that you're always selling these customizations in a very strategic way that makes sense, that you can sell that across the business. So that's kind of how I think about it. In terms of like simplifying tenant specific considerations, I don't really know of any tools off the bat, but there are lots that manage this sort of like process around customizations. So, you know, Posthog, for instance, has feature flags built into it where you can do that into a panel. The big bit there is they're more global than tenant specific. So you really need to look into that solution. But the main thing for you is visibility. So it's more a case of building a dashboard of sorts that gives you simple visibility of all of this sort of stuff. But yeah, that's how I'd approach it, kind of split concerns and go restrictions based, and think in a restrictions based way rather than customizations, because if you think customizations, you're going to expand your problems, whereas restrictions kind of makes you think more in a how can I consolidate this into a maintainable solution moving forwards.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you very much to both of you, gentlemen. Perhaps way too technical for me, but I'm sure if you are listening now live on the live streams, as you said you would, I'm sure you would have gotten quite something out of this. Next time, join us live, please, because it makes for a much better conversation, and also Pavel, Mike, and their other fellow panelists are much better at doing this with a person live, I'm sure. Now, we've got 37 minutes to go. We'll go on to our next question. And by the way, we're here to help founders for free build your early stage product in tech. And we've got two amazing experts with us. So please feel free to drop your question in the chat here in Microsoft Teams. And if you're not on Microsoft Teams, well, guess what you need to do? Go to our website, startup2scaleup.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 158. Click join. Quick registration gets you linked to your email, and through that link, you can join us here. It's audio only, which means you can join from anywhere via any device. Now, without further ado, I think we should go to our second question. I've co-founded a social networking site for creatives in Bristol, where users can showcase portfolios and connect with clients. We've launched our beta. Certain animation and hover effects on user profiles are inconsistent across browsers. This inconsistency impacts the site's aesthetic and interactivity, which are crucial for engagement. Could you recommend frameworks for CSS practices that help ensure visual consistency across browsers? Should we consider a phased rollout and that initially supports modern browsers only? Or is it better to prioritize compatibility from the start to maximize our reach? I would have thought things like this have been sorted out by various, whatever you're using to build that stuff. Pardon?
Since Internet Explorer 6, this problem should go away, but maybe it's still there. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I don't know. This sounds. I don't know what they're building and how they're doing it, but I just feel most things that you use today have this kind of built in them, don't they?
I'm happy to jump in if you want, because I have seen this.
You can start, and then we'll go to Pavel.
Yeah, I think it's one of these things when you're more trying to do these sorts of animations with more the bleeding edge side of CSS transitions. The big thing that you can do, there's a bunch of different packages out there, NPM packages. It sounds like your build process is actually broken, and it's not shipping the relevant polyfills that need to be put in, or CSS3 attributes. A lot of modern browsers, at least, follow the same consensus these days. The majority follow Chromium principles, at least when it comes to CSS, but they can have slight differences. It's a lot easier these days than when I first started doing front ends with IE6, and you couldn't even, use PNGs back then without a polyfill. But yeah, I would look at your build process first, but then actually what this raises for me is a more important you need to focus on, which is that this sort of interactivity, yeah, sure, it helps user engagement, but you need to think from the basics. What does this functionality need to do first before I add the bells and whistles to make a solid business, right? Always go with as many browsers as possible, but you need to think of the ones that it's possible for, what's the basic interaction that's good enough? Because an interaction to them doesn't actually give them value. The value here is networking, right? Like that's the big focus. So what gets them to that point of networking better? And I'd question that an animation does that, right? And then layer on top of that these extra things that for those that have the right browser, sure, it's a nicer experience, which does add a little bit of stickiness, but I'd really focus down on the what's needed first and then add that layer second and look at your build process.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I agree on the point of considering what's important, what's not. The one thing here that, and I've got no idea about the particular frameworks in CSS that could actually be beneficial here. I think just like Mike said, I think there's plenty of standardized version of it, and you would have to use some bleeding edge stuff for the browser not to pick it up. The one thing that I would suggest is like, if this is extremely important for you and you're really, really worried about it, then build the layer of testing. So for example, we use Browser Stack or Playwright, where you could actually run a test saying, does this animation work on this particular screen hundreds of times a day against thousands of browsers and operating systems and devices, which means on every single release, just like we do, we test absolutely everything automatically. And it kind of provides you with this insight that if that's important for whatever reason, then you are confident that it definitely works in those browsers. It would also expose where it doesn't. So then you can say, okay, there is this Firefox browser version 17.93. Do we care about fixing it there? And if all of your users, because they're creative, use Firefox, fine, you're in trouble. But if they're not, then you can say, okay, I don't care about this part. But at least you have the visibility where particular things is, and then you can make a strategic, reliable, data-driven decision. What do you do about this, right? Rather than saying in some browsers it doesn't work. There's like thousands of combinations of browser versus device versus mobile versus screen size versus the iPad versus hundreds of other things. So yeah, building some kind of a layer on top that automatically tested could be very, very useful for you.
Well, thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Really appreciated. We've got 30 minutes to go. Let's go on to another question that was sent in to us. I've recently joined. By the way, all of these questions, I'm posting them in the chat here in Microsoft Teams. Mike and Pavel, if you'd like to read them as I read them aloud for the live streams. So I've recently joined as third co-founder of a logistics platform in Liverpool that shares real-time tracking data through APIs. We're facing potential data abuse risks, especially from unauthorized parties. Jesus. How can we implement security layers like OAuth, or auth basically, or IP whitelisting to protect our APIs? And should we consider API monitoring to detect unusual patterns that indicate abuse? Oh boy, seems like today was the tech. Well, I'm joking, but more techie questions. Let's start with Pavel this time, and then we'll go to Mike.
Yeah, the answer is yes. If that's something that you do, you are providing live tracking information. There's plenty of security concerns to consider there. So the first one is definitely strong authentication and authorization. That should limit the amount of unauthorized and unauthenticated people to kind of go after your data and try to listen to it or try to grab it. That should help. Then you can have, and again, we just don't know the context, but you've got stuff like network level controls, like IP whitelisting. You can run all of your APIs through some kind of a VPN. You can have things like throttling quotas, like limiting the rate of the amount of APIs you expose to people. You can, and then there's all of the other things which helps you realize what are the real problems there, which means the proper logging, the real-time alerting, the kind of the analysis of, is that behavior somehow differently? But that's, if you are the third co-founder and you guys just started, I'm not sure if that's the main and the most important thing for you to do. But yeah, there's plenty of things to control, like authentication, better network level controls, limiting the damage, analyzing and monitoring and observing the traffic. All of those things could be useful, and I would assume that any decent DevOps oriented backend development team will be able to go through those. You just have to make this a priority for them to learn and consider.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. In all honesty, this feels like something you should have done from the off. It's common in APIs that where you have providers linking into you that you have authentication. So yeah, I just or authorization at least at the simplest view. This can be as simple as a basic authentication token or JWT, whatever. Just sounds like the basics potentially aren't in place already. So I'd focus there first. But yeah, follow Pavel's explanation already. You're on mute, Anton. If you there you go.
Yeah, I kept talking like an idiot. Sorry. Thank you very much for that. Let's see. I guess a quick reminder to those of you that are on the live streams, we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So if you do have any questions for our panelists, you'll need to join us here on Microsoft Teams. So whether you're tuning in via LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, please remember that you'll need to go to come to our to our Microsoft Teams call. It's audio only. Quickest way to do that, it's by going to our website, startup to scaleup.club. There you'll be able to find today's session, which is Startup Product and Tech Q&A 158. You'll then need to click join, which calls for a quick registration. That gets you a link to your email, and through that email you can then join us here. When you're here, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll then give you the mic and you can ask the panelists. If your questions today are on anything to do with product and tech, let's say product roadmaps, designs, prototypes, landing pages, apps, testing, MVP, automation, full stacks, low code, no code, and all that jazz, really. These are the kind of questions we're taking today to help founders build right. So drop them in. If you're not asking those questions today, but you've got other questions, then save them for the other events we run. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of each month, UK startup law, and third Friday of each month, UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And now let's go on to our next question. I'm the co-founder of a retail analytics platform in Birmingham that allows retail store owners to view customer footfall and sales data through dashboards. We're currently at the pre-Series A stage, whatever that means, and testing our platform with early users. Sorry, I added the whatever that means, by the way. We're encountering issues with our charts and data visualizations, rendering inconsistently on different browsers, especially between Chrome, Safari, and Edge. This inconsistency affects the accuracy and trustworthiness of our analytics, which is critical for convincing retailers of our product's reliability. Could you advise on best practices for ensuring cross-browser compatibility for data-heavy applications, particularly with dynamic visual elements? Are there tools that can help us test compatibility quickly, and should we consider using a specific JavaScript framework to manage these browser differences? What a question. Why can't you just bleed and join us here live? I think we started with Pavel. Now let's start with Mike.
Sure. I mean, this follows on from what we were speaking about earlier to some degree.
Indeed.
But one thing that's slightly different with this is charts are known for being inconsistent across browsers depending on how you're building them. So What I would normally ask in this is, what are you using to build them? Because there are a number of open source libraries out there which already kind of take that concern off your hands. If you are building them yourselves, that's likely the problem, because you have to think of positioning differently, and responsiveness is really key when you're putting any kind of chart into an application, especially if you're drawing to canvas, which most people still do, using the various different technologies there, like 3JS or whatever you're utilizing. But first step, I'd look at like, what is the charting library, if any, that you're using? Use a better one. A lot of them do come, so there's a lot. Just search JavaScript charting libraries, and there's loads. They'll equally show their compatibility across all browsers, so you can look into that. When it comes to the testing side of things, you could look at Browser Stack, Source Labs. All of them allow you to test across both browsers, but also you've got to remember to test it across operating systems with browsers, because a Windows machine reacts differently and renders text differently to a Mac machine. Same for browsers themselves. You have to do this cross-browser testing, and with those tools, they also can spin up physical devices at the same time. So you can even do that down to mobile, to iPads, to Google tablets, whatever you want to do there. So yeah, utilize those tools, put it into some kind of CI/CD framework, where you can monitor that over time. But yeah, the biggest thing here is take some of the pain off your hands and don't build them yourselves. If you are, utilize tooling out there, and look at how you can customize that tooling for visualization. At this stage, it really doesn't matter as much of how it looks like. Just prove the concept, sell the product, and then you can focus on this once you've got some money in bank. But by the sounds of it right now, you're struggling to get money in bank because people don't trust the data at the moment because it's displaying weird. So yeah, that's my advice.
Yeah, much better than anything I could advise. That was a great answer, Mike. I think I love the CI/CD pipeline that tests this forever. I'm also just reading this question once again. That if that's true, that means that someone, a client of theirs, is opening the same dashboards for footfall of their retail store in 3 different browsers and comparing this deeply. That they must have either the most detail-oriented users or a different challenge. My view would be like, if not, and I agree with you on replacing this with a standard library and comparing apples to apples rather than when you zoom in, zoom out, and the data just changes because the library just adjusted. And then the last thing I would just say, but this sounds crazy, that is there any chance that the API just throws at different numbers, or somehow somewhere you've got, I don't know, on some API calls return only 10 top data points versus on some other API calls which are done from a different chart, it's 20 or stuff like that. I'll just make sure that the API points powering the same charts are really the same charts. Somehow that sounds strange, but maybe there's something there. Yeah, this feels like a QA challenge rather than anything else. Yeah, that would be my kind of a suggestion and answer.
Well, thank you very much to both of you. Okay, question number 5. Wow. See how many questions we can go through when we have only 2 people. Much better than when we have tons. Okay. I'm a co-founder. I bet he means I'm the co-founder. Oh, no, I'm co-founded. Okay. So he is founding it, I guess. Okay. I'm co-founding a fintech app in Manchester focused on saving and budgeting tools for freelancers. We're interested in testing different savings goals prompts, but need guidance on setting up a structured testing process. How can we develop an A/B testing protocol that ensures reliable, actionable results whilst targeting distinct user segments without overlap? Oh boy, you want to get an MBA through a Q&A, my friends. Let's start with Mike. Or was it Mike earlier? No, let's start with Pavel this time, and then Mike, please. What would you do here, Pavel?
No, I I love the idea of the experimentation in principle and in practice. I think it's a great thing, and I think we should be building software that allows much more experimentation in principle. So I'm all in for A/B testing and all of the other stuff. There are some tools that helps with this, but in principle, if you are setting up the process, I think that the crucial thing for us that we've always seen is you start with the building the hypothesis, which means you're trying to say, what do we believe will be true if something happens? And a crucial thing about here is you're not trying to build it in such a way that you're trying to prove it that it's right. You're actually trying to prove it that it's wrong. And you should celebrate all of the hypotheses that went wrong for you, because that's how science works. Science doesn't say, well, I hope the gravity works, and then because it worked, then let's forget about any other test, and because it worked for me once, right? Now, from the perspective of A/B testing, the other thing is, like, how do you segment the users? That's very interesting. Do you do it at random? Do you put certain groups into certain buckets? Do you do it based on some kind of orientation towards your business goals? So that's very important. The third one, if you're doing this at scale, is how many data points you actually need to make it reasonable, so that, if you've got 10 people doing A/B test, that's one person can skew your results dramatically if you don't have a degree from statistics. I read somewhere that like 4,000 data points is reasonable not to have, like the inherent bias that just basically speaking, a tiny group of people can really, really move your results. And finally, in all of the experiments and in all of the hypotheses, no matter if you do A/B testing or lean startup or anything else, have a kill criteria defined before. So, for example, if you say this thing has to work on 60% of the users, or we keep going and keep finding out a better solution, or we just dump it, like, have this defined before, because it is so easy to say, well, 53% of the users like it, hence let's keep messing around with this or do more with it and so on. So being clear about what success looks like and when you kill your experiments is really, really important. Plenty of tools that can help you, depends on the complexity of your product, anything from Google Analytics to like more commercial tools that we've seen, like I think it's called Piano. But yeah, all in for experimentation. The more you do it, the more interesting things comes out of it. And final thing, make sure that you experiment on one item, which means, let's say you want to test different pricing points. Don't change the pricing, the messaging, the name of the program, the 27 things that it offers, and then say, oh, this is better. Change one thing so you actually know what triggers the different behavior of your customers. I think that's roughly what I think.
Holy moly, you're on fire today, Pavel. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with a lot of what Pavel says. The biggest problem I see when people are A/B testing is that they don't limit what they're testing, because how are you going to know one thing over another thing actually caused the uplift if you're putting different changes in? The other thing I see as well is that people don't test at exactly the same point in time. So always set up your A/B test that you're testing the same group of users at exactly the same time, because you lose things like seasonality if you test in different time periods. Then what else? The other thing that Pavel's already touched on is, if you're co-founding and this is a new app, you've got to make sure that you've got enough throughput with those distinct user segments for it to make any sense. That there is a statistical point to this, which is you need enough throughput to make sure that what you're actually discerning from the information that you've got in front of you is correct. Else you could just be leading the product into a worse place, because the people on board want a certain thing versus what other people could want in the future, or equally where your kind of hypotheses lie. So I love A/B testing, but you do have to be at a certain size for it to make sense. I'd lean in the early stages into more like getting closer to your customers. That design partner program I mentioned earlier is a key way of kind of creating that process with the customer, so you can make A/B tests, but it's more of a conversational A/B test of like, okay, what do you want? What do you like? If you saw this, what would change your way? And take them through a journey, because then you'll get more granular feedback than just a singular A/B test, and equally it will steer you in a better direction than I think A/B tests might at this point of the business. Yeah.
Wow, both of you on absolute fire today. Thank you very much for that, gentlemen. Just before we go on to the next few questions, a quick reminder to everyone, especially those of you on the live streams and those that will listen to this recording, is that we are obviously, today's the 1st of July, and then we will be doing sessions until I think the last week. Let me see. I think the last session will be the 25th of July. Yeah, 24th of July. Sorry, my bad. And then we're taking a break during August. So, understanding that startups don't stop working just because most people go on holiday, feel free to join us on WhatsApp. We've got some amazing groups that you can perhaps chat with your peers and some of the operators that join us on these panels, and even some of the investors and others. So feel free to do that. I've put the link here in the chat, but also it's quite easy to join this via our website. At the top and bottom of our website, there's a small WhatsApp icon that all you have to do is just click on it and join us. And by the way, the website, it's startuptoscaleup.club. We've got 12 minutes to go. I think we've got time for a couple more questions. Okay, Milton Keynes. I'm the founder of a pet care app in Milton Keynes. Our users are dropping off after the first few minutes. Oh boy. And I suspect it's due to a clunky onboarding UX. How can I design a more intuitive experience that helps users immediately understand the app's value without requiring a long tutorial? Okay. I'd be interested to see, well, if you were here, to ask you, why do you think it's the UX? What indication do you have? Has somebody mentioned that? Have you tested it yourself? Go and talk to these people that are using it. Ask them why not. Anyway, let's see what the experts got to say. I think we should start with Mike now, and then Pavel, please. What would you do here?
Yeah, I think you just nailed it, in all honesty, Anton. It's speak to the customers, understand them first. You're never going to be able to design an onboarding experience without talking to them properly of what they want. It could be that your app just doesn't provide value, as opposed to the UX. And that's where a customer conversation will take you a long way. The second point around how can I help people immediately understand the value without requiring a long tutorial? There are software that can't necessarily do this from the off, but a lot of it starts at your marketing level. So top funnel, how you actually communicating to the customer the value of the software you're building. I think that's really key here, to give them the right expectations when they come in. If you're setting them up for a fail of come into the app, we automate everything, and you don't automate anything, then obviously it's going to be a problem, and they'll come off board. But I think the big thing you can do as an interim, if you can't speak to these customers, is look at what your product solves. So a pet care app, to me, I don't know what that actually solves in terms of this. Is it general, how do you groom a cat over time? Then that's really important. You can take it from the high level goals you want to do with the app, and really distill that back to key actionable insights that you need to show them within the first 30 seconds. And quite often a Loom video might do that. So yeah, I'd focus more in on the customer and what your end goal is, and that'll help you create those concise sort of onboarding journey to get them involved.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. Pavel, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, sure. That's a fascinating topics in principle, from the perspective of onboarding and stuff like that. And I've got lots of thoughts here, so I'll try to be concise. And this is hard today in this heat. But in principle, I don't remember the last time having a Hoover that I have to read long instructions to start it and just have a go, right? So try to think of your application as a Hoover, which means build it in such a way that people can just naturally, and without even any need for onboarding and stuff, do the things. At the same time, if your app is tremendously valuable to the users because they understand the value it delivers, we go through a lot of pain to register for those applications. We register with Microsoft Teams, which is a horrible registration process, but somehow we do, because that chat and this conversation here and within the software that we use is very, very valuable. So it's just like, there are moments when we are willing to suffer because the value on the other side. And this is what Mike said, it's just like, understand that value first. Hence, if the value is understood by everybody else, then you can just really, really do it well. And then there are other things just purely tactical, which is listen to the guy called Rory Sutherland. He's like a behavioral scientist helping people understand the quirkiness of our stuff. So things like show them how quickly you can get to something extremely valuable that delivers value to you, even on the step 1 or step 2, that they will say, oh, okay, because of this, I'm willing to suffer for another 2 minutes because I got the value so early and I understand now even better. There are things like, and this is purely behavioral science, this is how strange humans are. Ask them for an extremely simple question early, something like, hey, what's your dog's name, or what's your pet's name? The moment we answer one question easy, and this is like sales tactics 1, 2, 3, you get the first yes. After that, it's just easier. Then consider things like, people love to finish tasks, which means in your onboarding flow, show them that the onboarding flow is 1, 2, 3, and show them that they are on step 1. Hence, we hate the checklists or the emails which are not answered. And this again drives our behavioral psychology to finish the steps. If you don't, and I've got no idea how many more there are, and I don't even have a clue if I'm going to finish at all, that's a really, really tricky thing, right? So show it like a gradient of the goal. And finally, you can still play on this, like the typical social proof. Basically speaking, something like 85% of people who did this achieved that, right? So there is so many things to make the onboarding process better, from behavioral science, simplicity, understanding the value, showing the value early. There are companies who can help. There are people who are really, really good at this. But I think the crucial thing is understand the value that the users are supposed to get out of it, and then they shouldn't leave. And it's very, very rarely the clunkiness of it. I think it's just asking the wrong questions, or not showing that I can actually finish, or not showing the value, unless this is what you mean by clunkiness. That would be my advice.
Well, thank you very much to both of you. Really appreciate that. I guess we've got 6 minutes to go, so we'll go into another question that was sent in to us rather than waiting for people to come up live, and then we'll wrap it up. So last question for today on Startup Product and Tech Q&A 158 is, question 7, geez. Our fintech app in Brighton allows freelancers to manage their finances. We want to test various financial planning tools, but developing each feature to MVP takes too long. What's the best approach to designing a rapid prototyping framework that aligns with our product goals and allows us to gauge user interest without excessive resource use? That's interesting. Goes a bit in line with, I think it was Mike who mentioned at the beginning the do's and don'ts to not build anything at the beginning. Mike, do you want to go first on this, and then we'll go to Pavel?
Yeah, sure. I think the big thing here again is one, make sure you're building an MVP that makes sense. Is it something that you've already had a conversation and you're building it to prove you can do it, or is it the opposite, which is building for the sake of building if you don't know a customer actually wants to buy it? But then if we actually focus on the problem where you can't prototype quickly enough, use AI. There's so many tools out there now, and if your engineers aren't using them right now, you should really get them to start adopting AI as much as possible. It depends how much you want to be on brand and within your own code base to what tools you'll use, but there's Lovable, there's Replit, where you can do it just from like an LLM conversation and it'll build it live in front of you. You can give it designs, you can do that whole process. Or if you want to be a bit more on the code side, you can use Claude Code, Codex, you can use Cursor and build that way. There's so many tools out there to really rapidly designed. You know, I've personally had MVPs up and running within a few hours, depending on complexity. But yeah, you just need to utilize what's in front of you and kind of get fully wrapped up in there, because yeah, there's no reason why something should take long these days, unless you're not building an MVP. So there is a nuance to what MVP means, and remember that beautiful is still part of an MVP. It's not something you should forget. Don't make it terrible as an experience. But yeah, that's where I'd focus and just start playing with the tools that are out there. There's tons of them. There's tons of YouTube tutorials. So I just get in there and start playing.
Yeah, thank you very much. Last but not least, Pavel, please. Any thoughts on this, Pavel?
Sure, Mike. I think you saved me on the rant. What is an MVP? So I appreciate that. Versus what is a prototype. But like the first thing for me would be what you're really trying to test. If you're trying to test if the planning tools work, then this is just purely a backend task. And if this is taking way too long, that means maybe there is just some hidden complexities within your infrastructure, or lack of the ability to actually spin off new things and just build very, very quickly. If this is about the users, then the options becomes dramatically more prominent, which means, just like Mike said, you can have basically speaking AI tools spinning something, and that could be enough. You can also have what we call like a white glove MVP. The user sends you, I don't know, this is what I would like to do as my planning plan, and you do it semi-manually to prove that they are interested, or that the value of the tool that you know that can automate this later, but you know how to deliver this manually, it works for the first 10 users, and you can prove that they are interested in the outcomes of what the tool would be. Even hire someone to do it semi-manually for you, and it will be still worth, because at this point, when you are building MVPs or prototypes, the thing is not about building, the thing is about learning, and that's the final crucial thing. And like, if you really want to just prove which one they use, just build a landing page with AI tools like Gamma today takes 7 minutes or 4, and just put 4 of them out there with a fake credit card details connected to it. Explain the choice between, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 of them, and see how many users click. You can schedule 200 ads on Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on in a day. This experiment can take half an hour if you're really, really good and you know what to do. It's just like today, to answer this question, we just don't know what you're trying to test. Hence, it's really tricky to answer where the problem really could be. And finally, like, yeah, if MVP takes long, where the MVP is minimal thing to prove, yeah, then the white glove services, talking to the users, being unbiased in conversations with them, could be exactly the same thing without a line of code being written. It's an interesting moment for all of the future development teams that myself and Mike run. It's like, how do we really respond to the challenges of the business so that they don't ask those questions on this forum? Because actually, the development team within that company should be capable of doing this in time that it's needed, right? Because somehow the CEO of the business or the co-founder is asking us, because whatever they're doing is just not fast enough. And don't get me wrong, I've got exactly the same challenges. I'm sure that Mike has got exactly the same challenges as well. It's just the world where we are living, where the business will expect high level of experimentation, high level of prototyping, high level of being data-driven, high level of changeability to what they do. It will look a little bit like headless chickens from the perspective of the backend developers, but I think this is where we are going. So we all have to adjust and get better.
Here, here. We will toast to that. It is now 1 o'clock, so I guess it's time to wrap this up. Perhaps we can have some quick parting words from the gentleman, and then we will call it a day. Mike, what are your parting words for us?
Yeah, sure. Just been a pleasure talking again. It's I always enjoy these. Be great if some of you can join on the live so you can chat in person, because we can dive a lot deeper there. But yeah, always open for an extra conversation too. But yeah, my main takeaway is just talk to your customers. They will help lead you where you need to go. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Yes, Pavel.
Could not agree more. Thank you very much, Mike, for dealing with us, and it was a pleasure. I've learned a lot, and I think the interesting thing from my point of view is the time for builders is here again. Every single one of those questions, every single one of those apps needs more, better, sooner, faster. It's going to be an interesting next decade of building stuff. I'm here for it. Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Here, thank you very much for that too. Really appreciate it. Just a quick couple of reminders. We run 6 regular sessions helping founders for free with amazing panelists like Mike and Pavel. On Mondays it's talent, Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays it's growth, Thursdays fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of each month it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can register to any of them via our website, startup2scaleup.club. You find your preferred session, click join, quick registration gets you a link to your email. When you're there, you may also want to join our WhatsApp community. We've got some amazing groups of founders, investors, and also operators that you can join in, especially now during the summertime where we'll be taking time off in August. It may be a good idea for you to be in that peer-to-peer environment. As far as my parting words are concerned, just remember the startup journey can be both difficult but also quite enjoyable. So try to focus on what gets you excited, but at the same time, look after yourself and those around you. Hopefully, we'll see you tomorrow for Startup Growth. We've got some amazing growth specialists joining us. Otherwise, have a great afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Thank you, and God bless. Bye-bye for now.